My name is Alexis. I'm part of the global CSU organization, so I'm a technical engineer working on Teams integration scenario, and so I'm happy to present this use case for you today, something that we developed for customer and is now publicly available for everyone to use. The topic today is not exactly how to bring video content to an adaptive card, but how to play a video content from an adaptive card. So the challenge that we are trying to solve today is the following one. I've been working a lot with people from the communication team. Basically, the organization are now adopting Microsoft Teams as being the solution to communicate and collaborate. And as you move and use Teams more and more, you want to as well switch the way you communicate on the different Microsoft solutions. So you want to move from emails to Teams, or at least you want to expand your communication opportunities and channels into Microsoft Teams. And so one of the main asks that we receive from customer is, as a communication team, I want to use Microsoft Teams to send messages to various diverse and large audiences into my organization. And so one of the solutions that we use a lot, that we advocate this solution very much because it's very convenient and very useful. The name of this solution is called Company Communicator. This is an open source project available on GitHub. And so basically what this solution does is to let people like, I will call her Marta. Marta is from the communication team. She wants to send a communication to a group of people in Teams. So she has an interface to prepare the message, provide a title, an image, some links, and some content. And this will be sent to the audience in the form of this adaptive card, right? So this is what the solution provides. And as you know, this is one example. And as it is an open source solution, you can refactor this card with any content and as you like. So no limitation there. But the first question that comes very, very fast after we have deployed this solution is, yeah, great. Can I also send videos in this adaptive card? Can I also send modern media into this modern communication channel, right, and format? And so basically the solution, and one of the first solutions that we provide is to say, yeah, you can do that. You can use animated GIF. So you just take your video and then you just convert that to animated GIF, and then you send a GIF instead of a JPEG file or anything like that. I would say that sometimes it does the trick, but it doesn't last very long, and you know why? Basically, you don't have any sound, and basically it's very short sequences. So we definitely had to find a better answer to this problem. And so this is how we try to investigate different options here. And so the good thing with Microsoft Teams is that this is a platform. And so as a platform, you have many ways to integrate your application into Teams. And so we thought a bit out of the box. So if today we cannot play a video in the context of an adaptive card into Teams, what can we do else? I don't know how you are familiar with the combination of adaptive cards, supported content, and channels, but basically the challenge we have today is that you cannot play a video in an adaptive card in Teams. You could play a video in an adaptive card if this is not running in Teams, but the combination of the three does not work as of today. So the solution I will present today is to do exactly what you see here. And by the way, this is an animated GIF. So you see that you have a card, you click on it, and then you will play a video in a full screen mode. Okay. The challenge being that you don't want to be redirected to a web page, you want to stay and remain in the context of Microsoft Teams. Let's jump into a demo to see how things are working from a user experience. So I am in Microsoft Teams. I do have my application deployed. So this could be the so-called Company Communicator app that I mentioned earlier. And this is the demo sample or sample app that I will demonstrate today. So you see that I do have this card. And this is the GIF. This is the animated GIF that I was talking about. So this bot is a demonstrator to showcase how to play this video. So you have two options. One is to send and receive an adaptive card. And this is the demo card. So typically this card will be exactly the same format as Company Communicator. So as a user, I will receive this card. you could animate this card with a GIF, but the cool things here is that now this play button tells you that you can click on that, and you could, when you click on this button, you see that you have now a full screen that is displayed, and the video will be loaded within this screen. Okay, so now if I can play, if I press play, the video will play. And here it's not exactly a full screen, but if I was in the desktop client, this will be totally full screen. Okay. I won't play the video now because with the bandwidth and so on, I think this will not be a great experience, but trust me, this is something that you can play. And this is a video hosted on a public endpoint. This is hosted on YouTube, right? And so once you are done, you play your video, you just close the stage view, and then you will directly be back into your Teams environment, right? Playing with the chatbot. Let's take a look at the other card, the custom card. Because here it's nice. I mean, you can play a video and the video is hosted on a public repository. But another request, and very, very strong request from customer is, yeah, but I'm doing internal communication. So I want to have my content published on my SharePoint environment. I just want to have this video being accessible by people in my organization and not put that on the internet on YouTube, right? And you know that the challenge with content on SharePoint is that it required the user to be authenticated to access the video, right? And so the challenge here is how will I be able to do exactly the same, but playing a video that is secured by Azure Active Directory? So the demo is the following. In that case, I will go on my SharePoint environment. This is my video hosted on any SharePoint. Obviously, I need to make sure that the user will have access to this environment, so it should be open to the entire company. I go there into the details. And this is how I will get the path that I need. So this is the path to my video. Okay, so I just need to select that. And so here I will provide three information. One, I need a title. Then I need to provide the link to the content, which is the video hosted on SharePoint. And then I need to provide the website URL. It could be the same thing, just the URL. It could be the website or the SharePoint site. Then I validate that. So what's happening here is that I'm providing this information to the bot, and then the bot will generate the specific URLs and how to create the stage view. Now you see that I have this button. I click on it, and this is my great video, and this is my content running into SharePoint, right? And you see that I didn't have to authenticate to access this video. So basically, I am authenticated in Teams, the SSO is working, and then I can play my video, okay? And here again, you have the full screen mode. You can go back to normal screen. And then once you are done, you can just close that. All right? So this was for the demo part. So now the question is, how do we make that happen? How does it work? So we need two main things to make that happen. So the first thing that you understand adaptive cards, and here we are not directly using a feature of the adaptive card. We are expanding the adaptive card with this stage view to play my video, right? So the first thing that we have to understand a bit more, what is stage view and how to generate a deep link. You know that deep link is a way in Teams to point to specific application or start an application in Teams. We use the same principle, but this time to open a video in a stage view mode from the adaptive card. And the other thing that we need to understand a little bit is that you may see that there are many things that we refer as being an app ID in our documentation. And so this could be a bit confusing because there are different types of application ID or app ID. So, and we will see that in a minute. So the first thing is the app ID that you find into Azure Active Directory. This one is used to register the app in Azure ID and to provide permission either to the app or to the user. So it's the delegation model or application permission model. Okay, so this is one app ID that we mentioned in the documentation that you can also see as being the client ID. The second type of ID that we use is the app ID that you find in the Teams app manifest. And this is something that we refer to as well as being an external ID. So in Teams, the ID that is in the app manifest that you can control because you set this ID, and this is something that is generated automatically, just have to be a new identity that is unique in your organization, but this is you that define the ID. This is the one that you put in the manifest, and you will find this ID in Teams Admin Center as well. Then the last one will be the internal ID, and this is the one that we need today. This one is a bit more trickier because it's not an application ID that we see a lot of time, right? And this one is an identity that we automatically generate every time an application is published in the Teams store or when you sideload an application, right? So this is challenging because you have control over the app manifest ID, but you don't have any control over this internal ID. And this is the ID that we need to use in this design, okay? A bit more at how these things work. So the first thing is, I mentioned the tab view, right? So the tab view and the deep link to generate this stage view. So here is the pattern that we have to generate. So basically we'll use this pattern. So it's a type of deep link. So it opens a stage. You have to provide an app ID. And this is where the tricky thing happens. This app ID is the internal app ID I was mentioning earlier, right? And then you have to provide in the context operation, the content URL, the website URL and the name, which are exactly the three parameters that I enter into my demo app, the name of the video, the link to the video, and the link to the content, which is the website, okay? So this is what we need to generate. So first thing is that I need to get this internal app ID somehow. I need to find a way to get this information. And the way we will do to do that is to use one of the Graph API that lists all the applications that have been installed for a specific user. So we'll use this Microsoft Graph API to ask, please give me the list of applications installed for this user. So if the user has installed the company Communicator app, either from the store or either as a sideloaded app, I will be able to get access to this ID thanks to this API, right? And I will use two types of permissions. So in my demo, I will use an application-based permission because it's just simpler for the setup, but you could also use a delegated permission so that the user will use SSO and then you will get the permission to list the application installed for this given user, okay? So this is the first thing we do. The first ID I was mentioning, the ID of my application in Azure AD. This is this one. And you see that in API permission, I have granted my app the permission to list all the applications installed for a given user. Again, this is an application permission, easier for me to do, but you could replace that by a delegated permission. Let's have a quick look at the Graph API, the Graph Explorer, right? And let's try to use this API. So the first thing we do is I will call this API to say, please give me all the installed app for this user. So I provide the user ID, and this is a very easy information to get because when I am in Teams, all the messages sent to the bot will contain this information. So it's easy for me to get this information. Then as my application has the permission, it's consented to list the app for the user. This is the answer I will get, right? So this is not something that is really useful for me. So the first thing I need to do is to change a little bit this query to this one. So I need to expand to get more information. And you see that now it's a bit more useful for me because you see that I do have this internal ID and I do have this external ID that I control. So this external ID is the information that you put in the Teams app manifest, and this internal ID is the one you are looking for to generate the URL and to trigger the stage view and open and play the video, okay? So now I don't want to have all this list of application installed for this user. I just want to have the ID for this application. So this is the final state of my query. My bot will query the Graph API to get the list of applications installed for this user, but I just want to have the internal ID for this external ID that I know, which is my video player bot. Okay. So now that this is in place, we'll show you the link to the GitHub repository to deploy this solution, but this is here on Office Dev. You have all the content and all the explanation to install the solution. And so if we jump a little bit into the code, The first thing you will need to provide will be the environment variable. So all this information are very, very standard. By the way, this code sample is is using as a basis the EcoBot code sample. So it's really an extension of the EcoBot. So basically, this information are very standard: app ID, app password, app type, tenant ID. Very common just to get access to the bot service and to access to the permission register on Azure Active Directory. And then the other thing that you need to provide will be the Teams external app ID, which is the ID that you find in your Teams app manifest. Okay, so nothing fancy. If you change the ID in the Teams app manifest, you will have to change that as well. Okay, going back. So this is for the environment properties. Then the bot itself is very simple. This is the main file. So this is where you will get access to the Azure bot service. This is where you will listen to incoming requests. And this is where you will route the request, the post request, to your bot connector, right? All the API messages will be routed to your bot. So nothing special, very standard. This is nothing specific here. If we look at the bot part, so all the requests again are sent to this bot connector. Here again, nothing very fancy. You see that for every message, I will just look at what is the request. And the only thing I will do, and I added in this sample, is this part. Because I need two things. One, I need to get an access token to query the Graph API. And two, I need to get the information, which is what is the internal app ID based on the external app ID. So this is how I build this query, is to use these two methods. One is to get a token, two is to get the app ID. Okay. And so now these two methods are in here. And so to build this solution, I'm using two libraries. One is the Microsoft authentication library to access to Azure AD, and the other one is the Microsoft Graph client to facilitate how I query the Microsoft Graph API. Okay, so I think that you will see now, and this is why I wanted to demonstrate to you before, but basically what we do here is that when we get the token, and you understand that I have provided permission to my app to list the app installed for a user, then the second thing I have to do is only to call the Graph API saying I want to get the app installed for this user, I want to expand to have more information, and I want to filter to the specific ID. Okay, and so the output of this query will be just to give me this information that I need, right? And we can verify that. The bot knows how to do two things. It knows how to answer to hello, but it also knows how to answer to give me the app ID. So here what's happening is exactly what I've explained. I receive a request, I send that to the bot will query the Graph API and send me this information. And you see here that I have all the information I needed, especially this one. This is this one, the Teams app ID. This is the one I needed. Okay. There is one last step, which is how I automatically generate this pattern, right? So I need to generate that. And the way I generate this pattern is here in my adaptive card. It's how I construct my adaptive card. And so this is very standard. It's just different adaptive card patterns, so nothing very fancy here. What is interesting is this, the URL encoder. So basically, this simple function will take three information: the video name, the video URL, and the website URL. Remember, these are the three things that I need. And then I just check if the domain is on SharePoint or not. So if it is like on YouTube, I will just copy paste these three information into this content URL pattern. So I just create the pattern that is expected for the deep link. And if the video is hosted on the SharePoint.com domain, I will create a slightly different pattern, because to have the SSO working in this situation, so if I want to make sure that when I click on the link within the context of Team to access SharePoint content, I need to have this specific pattern. You may be aware about that already, but this is the Teams logon page that will do the SSO automatically for you so that you don't have to take care about that. Okay. And so this is the only difference between public and SharePoint video. All right. And one last thing that I can show you is the app package, and especially the Teams manifest. So here again, the external ID that you can change. You will see exactly the same pattern to access your SharePoint site with the Teams logon pattern. And then as you want to enable SSO, there are some requirements, and this is as well documented, but you have to enable some valid domains to access SharePoint, and you need to enable SSO on your SharePoint site. If you don't put that, then SSO will not be enabled. There are 3 things for that. You have to set the web application info, you have to set the valid domains, and you have to use the Teams logon page to enable SSO between Teams and SharePoint. With all that said, this is it. We saw that everything is there on this GitHub repository. And yeah, this is what the solution offers today.
Thank you so much, Alexis, for this demo. It's great seeing an alternative to something that was not supported currently. And as you mentioned, this is a very common request from customers. So even going to the extent of the authentication to get it to work with SharePoint, that's just really great for the community here. So thank you so much for this contribution.
You're welcome.
Anyone has any questions that they would like to send out? So I think Andy has one in chat. What if the org has a global app permission policy set to disable custom and third-party apps? However, there are custom app permission policies enabled that allow custom and third-party, and they're assigned to specific users. Any way to tell the Graph API to target apps that are based on permission policy versus everything available in the whole org?
So if the question is, can I, so basically here, the good thing that the application permission policy will enforce the fact that some user can install the app or not install the app. So basically here with this call to the Graph API that says, can you give me the list of application installed for these users? If you have an application installed, it means that the permission policy has been set for the specific user. So the app does not have to know what is the permission policy set. You just check the app install. And if you see the app, it means that the permission policy has been set for this user. So you don't have to check that. Now to answer the question, is there a way to check the permission policy? This will be another API, but I will have to check if there is an API to provide the permission policy and the user set for this permission. Good question. I don't have the answer for that. I don't remember.
Awesome. We have another one in chat here. Yasser asked, so just to understand this, to understand the idea of the solution, this bot is a way to send a video to any/all users through personal chat, similar to a proactive message. And this is not possible with a company communicator.
So so the question is, I'm not sure I understood the question properly.
I think the question would be if this is possible to do with a company communicator, or if the solution is the alternative to that.
No, it's so Company Communicator is an open source project. So basically you can take the code and do whatever you want. The only difference here will be that Company Communicator is built on .NET and my sample is built on Node.js. So there is a mismatch in terms of programming language, but the principle will be exactly the same. So what I demonstrated here could be definitely implemented in Company Communicator and will work exactly the same way. All right. So it's really an extension that you can bring to Company Communicator. It's not like an alternative. It's just something you can extend and bring to Company Communicator. Yeah.
Thank you for that question, Yasser. Do we have anyone on voice that would like to unmute and ask a question, either on the demo or adaptive cards related?
What happens if you don't, well, if you want to add a new app and don't have access to the admin center, which is coming up quite often, actually, in some way? I mean, we sorted that by just asking people to work on a dev tenant, and then we only deploy it pretty much to the live tenant. But I've seen that coming up quite often. I'm not sure if you have anything to say about that, Alexis.
So the fact that you have an application deployed in dev and then somehow it is deployed to the production tenant.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you want to work on an app, you need to be able to register that app. And to be able to do that, you need to have access to the admin center. So if you don't have access to the admin center, you cannot build an app, pretty much.
So no, you have to. The admin center is here if you want to publish the app and put the application into your app catalog. You could just use the app for yourself, and this is the side-loaded mode. But this is not how you operate if you want to publish the app to the entire organization. It's only for you because you are developing. The challenge with the tenant that, I mean, this application is multi-tenant. So the only requirement to work in multiple tenants is that you provide the consent for every niche organization where the application will be deployed. So if you're in the scenario where you deploy the app into the demo tenant, and then you want to go to production and targeting the same app, then you need to also authorize this app, you have to also grant consent into the production environment. So it will work, but it's the same app, and the the app registration and service principal model. And this is what will happen in that case.
And then you need to have admin consent anyway. As far as
so two ways to see that. So in my demonstration, I'm using an application permission. So application permission equal admin consent on Azure AD, right? Now there is an alternative. You can use user permission, and then with user permission, I can provide the consent if I'm authorized to. But as a user, I can consent. I don't need the admin to consent on my behalf. Okay. So, but if you do that, the authentication pattern is a bit different. I would have to implement differently the authentication part. So you can do that. I took another choice because it was simpler for me to do that with an application permission.
Yeah, it's often a lot easier. I mean, if you work in larger enterprise size companies and all that, then all these things get suddenly a lot trickier because there's so many regulations of what you're allowed to and what not.
That's correct. Yeah. But as soon as you want to work with the Graph APIs, you need to overcome this situation, and this is, I would say, pretty standard. But you're right. This is a way for the companies to have a good control over which application is requesting which type of information. So yeah, but you're right.
Is there a way to use part of the code to send a video using Power Automate?
Yeah. So the answer to this question will be yes, because there is no dependency on the adaptive card. Oh, no, sorry, I'm wrong. Because you need to have the answer could be yes, except for SharePoint, because basically, if this is a static content and a public URL, you don't have to regenerate the authentication part. So basically, you put a static content, you send the adaptive card, it's static. You click on the link, you open the stage view, it's fine. But if you have some type of authentication in place and so on, you may have some difficulties to the pattern of the URL. We have to change for every niche authentication, and this is generated when you click on the link. So there may be some limits if you do that with Power Automate.
So I have a question. I see that there's the demo card and the custom card option, and I don't understand the difference. So I just missed that part. Like, so when you ask the bot, you give information to the bot returns the video. Is there like a way to send it? Like, do you send the video now to? Can you send it to a user or a group of users? Like, how do we do that part of the solution? So when we interact with the bot, let's say if we choose custom card and then we put the video URL, all the information. So then what happens? Does it return the video to me, or does it send the video to other users that I can specify somewhere?
No, here the objective was really to create a demonstrator to demonstrate the principle and the architecture. So today, this is just a card where you provide the input, and then the code will generate what you will send to your end users. So it's really to demonstrate the information that you need and how to generate this adaptive card and this deep link so that you can open the video with SSO from an adaptive card.
Okay.
So it's a bot, it's a personal bot that only talks to me, and this is just a demonstrator in that case.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
But this could be something that if you have something like an open Teams channel, you could use, right? If you include more people in the Teams group channel, would they also be able to see the video?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the adaptive card is available to everyone that receives it. So it could be via a personal chat or within a channel. Doesn't change. You have the card, and then everyone can click on it. The only requirement, if this is on SharePoint, that the user has access to the SharePoint site. So the only point of intention that don't send something that the user cannot access. So this is the only thing you have to pay attention at if you use the SharePoint content hosted on SharePoint.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So while that might not achieve sending it to a user individually, at least if you want to share a video with a group of users, you might be able to do it that way by including them in the same Teams channel. We have a question from Carlos.
An easy way to do that is that you put the video on the same SharePoint that is attached to the Teams. So basically, you want to send an adaptive card into a team. You put the video where, on the SharePoint site below this Teams environment. So you're sure that everyone in the Teams will have directly access to this video. It's by design.
Just wondering if I have a video somewhere where when I was, well, at least when I was logged in before, I should be able to see the video anyway, because you have a working cookie for the SharePoint server, as long as you're in the browser at least. Well, it would work on the desktop version, but if you run Teams in the browser, it would work anyway, because you can technically open the video.
That's correct. Yeah. But the good thing is that you have SSO, so you don't have to go first on SharePoint. It will work directly. So this is the beauty. Yeah. And it will work on desktop, because the cookie stuff does not work on desktop.
Yeah, that's true. No, but what I'm saying is it technically can work with any remote source, not even SharePoint, as long as the user opening the video has access to it.
Yeah, but at the end, you have still to provide access to the user. So this is the requirement, at least. You don't have access, you will not be able to access it. So even if you have a browser, you will not be able to authenticate to the video.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Awesome.